Summary for Unit 3, Origins of the Cold War. Unit 3 has explored the origins of the Cold War. Hitler had provoked the formation of the Grand Alliance, and with his death, the cement binding this marriage of convenience together dissolved. Ironically, both sides wanted the partnership to endure after World War II. Both East and West acknowledged each other as great powers that would dominate the post-war world and collectively guard world peace. But multiple differences increasingly put Stalin at odds with his Western partners. It was at the February 1945 Yalta Conference that the fundamentally different Soviet and Western visions for the post-war world manifested their incompatibility. The Yalta Accord confirmed the Big Three's collective resolve to finish off Hitler, while tabling fundamental differences for resolution at a later post-war conference. Potsdam was supposed to serve as World War II's Versailles, but instead of a comprehensive settlement, it resulted in a stalemate when the West refused Stalin's demands for reparations. After 3 long weeks of wrangling, the Big Three could only agree on a basic structure for managing occupied Germany, leaving most questions concerning the post-war future unresolved. Following the impasse at Potsdam, both Stalin and the West tried to persuade and pressure their ally to acknowledge their concerns and interests. Stalin wanted capital for rebuilding and machinery from the Ruhr area occupied by the West, while Anglo-Americans insisted on free elections in Eastern Europe. With neither side willing to budge, the impasse produced escalating tensions as both sides tried to unilaterally acquire what they believed they merited. With the 1947 Marshall Plan, the United States responded to Europe's slow recovery and communist strikes by providing capital to stimulate European reconstruction and to safeguard Western Europe from communist influence. The Marshall Plan tried to convince post-war European governments to limit the socialist measures they were installing, and which crimped the U.S.'s long-term trade prospects. The West, tiring of the high cost of Germany's occupation, and Soviet intransigence in negotiating a final settlement, decided to impose a unilateral settlement by reuniting the western zones of Germany and restarting German industries. Stalin, alarmed that a still industrialized Germany might be integrated into the Western capitalist camp, tried to provoke a diplomatic settlement by putting West Berlin under siege. For a few tense weeks, World War III seemed imminent, but Truman tried to avert the crisis by airlifting supplies into West Berlin. After ironing out the logistics, the airlift managed to sustain the city, while the siege put Stalin on the defensive as a bully. In 1949, Stalin removed the blockade of Berlin, bringing both the crisis and the Grand Alliance to an end. Historians continue to debate whether the Cold War was inevitable or not. In any case, the anti-Hitler marriage failed to survive the war as a result of a deadly cocktail of mutual suspicions, irrational fears, bad faith, and substantially different aspirations for the post-war future. This gulf prevented both East and West, from negotiating a comprehensive post-war settlement, and led to escalating post-war tensions as both sides pushed their own views and solutions upon their wartime ally. With Stalin's 1948 invasion of Czechoslovakia, he began the socialist makeover of Eastern Europe. Terror and force was used throughout Eastern Europe from 1949 to 1950 to Stalinize these states and to transform them into a Soviet buffer against future Western invasion. Europe became partitioned into two blocks. There would be almost no contact, communication, or trade between these two halves of Europe for 30 years. As we will see in the next module, Rise of the Welfare State, each bloc would follow its own developmental path.